Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy. I'm your host, Shayna Davis, and I thank you so much for being here today. But before we get started, I need a favor. So I want you to take a screenshot of this episode, wherever it is that you're listening to it. And with that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at Shayna Rattler Davis, and I want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. Why do I do that? I don't care so much about the downloads, although some of my partners do. However, I know that there are far too many women that are seen and not paid well enough, and they don't really know where to start to change that. And so, the more times that these episodes are shared, the more they can get exposed to the strategies that are going to help them to own their influence. So, thank you in advance for being willing to do that. Well, I know I say this all the time, but I truly am really excited about my guest today. We met just over a month ago, and it's literally like we've known each other forever. What's the saying? He's my brother from another mother. So I'm going to read his bio and we're going to get started on a conversation that you're going to want to make sure that you have your pen and paper for if you really want to learn how to win in the influence economy. So here we go. My guest today is an energetic, humorous, and inspirational speaker, business development strategist, and performance mentor. For over 25 years, he has delivered winning tactics that have increased results of leading performers from companies all over the world. He is the CEO of Thrive, a company focused on helping brands become even more amazing through the power of connecting. When he isn't speaking or working on his top rated Thrive Loud podcast, he is watching his kids grow up too fast, obsessing over how bad his sports teams are, listening to country music, and playing some not so great golf. I'm not good either. So, if you or your organization are trying to find the right way to make the connections essential to achieve your business goals, my guest today is the man to help make you happen. I am excited to welcome to the show Lou Diamond. And no, it's not Lou Diamond Phillips. Sorry.
Shayna, thank you so much for having me here. Yes, yeah, you're my sister from another mister, I guess, from
Yes.
that same way on the brother from another mother. But yes, we are definitely cut from the same cloth.
We definitely realized right away, you know how people say, like, these are my people? Like, we recognized right away, like, you're my people, you're my people. And so I'm excited for what we've already done together and what I believe we'll probably do together in the future as well. So, Lou, I want to get into this conversation of connecting. We've talked about when I read your bio, the different brands that you've worked with, how you've helped people improve and connect. And so I'm really curious, like, what inspired you to develop this concept of speakeasy and what does it mean to you? Because to me, it means a hole in the wall that I can go drink liquor and that people don't really know that it's there.
By the way, that was a little bit of the inspiration for what the speakeasy methodology is about, because in its simplest of forms, it was the cool club that I wanted to let people in on the way that you need to connect with others. I think whether you are running a company and you're trying to connect your business to new customers, if you work inside of a company and you're trying to connect with the people within it, you're trying to grow your career and your brand. I got really obsessed with understanding how important it was to connect in this world, and that has been my thing. I've always been one of those connectors, and it all started really with a really powerful question that I think we never really think of. And the question was, where does every connection in our lives begin? And I got obsessed with this, Shayna, to say the least. Like, I literally, like, I did research. I talked with people to understand, was it how well we listen? Was it how well we meld together? Is it common interest? It was a lot of different things. But in double clicking down and figuring out every connection in my life and anyone else's life that you've made, it all starts with a really good conversation.
Mm.
Let's just rewind and even go back to when we were like little babies, and mom and dad were talking to us like goo goo gaga when we were that little. That was probably one of the first connecting conversations that we had. Think of the first friend you've ever made. Think of the first relationship you had with a teacher. Think of, as you were growing up, the relationships with other family members, or as you got older and through school and all those years, you ended up meeting other people outside. It always started with a conversation. Your first job interview, the person you met your first day at work, right? The first time you had a business meeting with someone, it all starts with that conversation. And we know this kind of feeling that we have when we have a good one, right? Things meld, there's natural chemistry between people, there's laughter, there's different emotions, and you learn a tremendous amount of stuff in that particular conversation. So I kind of nailed it and figured out this is where it all begins. But then I realized the other flip side of that, and that is that not every conversation that we have is really a good one, right? We have conversations that don't lead to the connections we're looking for. The job interview doesn't lead to you getting hired. The asking for the raise doesn't get you the promotion or the money that you're looking for. The first date doesn't turn into a second date, right? There's tons of conversations that we have that we don't connect.
Yeah.
And then it hit me. What if it did? What if every single conversation you had did lead to the connection you wanted? That's what led to me understanding and learning about the Speakeasy methodology that I teach, speak about, promote, and exemplify on my podcast, as do you, which is part of the reason that we get along so well. And I realize that these are skills that can be coached and learned and practiced over and over and over again. And by doing them, you will have the ability to connect, engage, and win. So that is the kind of the birth of the Speakeasy methodology. And I wanted to let everybody into the cool club and show them where it was and teach them so they can do all of those things that I know connections can give to their lives.
Yeah. The positive side of the flip of the coin is exactly how our relationship started. I had
Absolutely.
just come off stage and I was like, you came up to me and I don't remember what you said, but I was like, "Can we go out in the hallway and I ask you something and you just keep it real with me?"
Totally.
And so that conversation was what I believe in the question that I asked, in the way that you framed your answer, it immediately, before we got into the personalities gelling and, humors matching and everything else, we were able to identify some commonalities between us because it's like, okay, if she's asking that or he's answering it like this, they have a common thread between the way they think.
So now here's the funny part for all of your listeners and viewers here, Shayna. I used to think it was the things that you said, or maybe something that you did, or even the commonalities that you just described that could be how these connections happen. However, what I realized was it wasn't what you said or what you did, it was actually how you needed to be in the
That's
conversation. And a lot of us don't realize that we can control that. We can actually work and practice on the ways you need to be to connect every single time. And that's where I focused the book, the message, the very fun interactive keynote. In my podcast, it's exactly what I did. It's kind of funny. We talked about the word coincidence before we hit record. On the day that we're recording this, Shayna's appearance on my podcast program is out right today, which is really cool. And you get to feel that all going on. We're both being that certain way. And I focus on those ways of being. And those are the things that you can actually work on and control. And then from there, you'll find those commonalities and bring those worlds together that really is where the connections really not only gel, but when I connect with you and you connect with me, we each take a piece of each other's worlds and we bring it together and it makes our own world bigger and better. So, in a weird way, a really good conversation via the speakeasy way is helping to change the world one conversation at a time.
So with that being said, you said that there's an opposite side of the coin as well, that there's conversations that are had and the connection is just not there.
Yeah.
So how do you, you talked about, it's not necessarily what is being said, it's not even what is being done during that conversation, but it's how you're being and how you're showing up. And so are we not showing up right? And that's the way that there was no connection based on that conversation? Or how do you navigate when you're like, okay, there's not a great connection here? Now, I'm just going to say this. I think sometimes there's not a great connection there and I don't want anything to come out of it. But other times maybe, you know what? This may not be landing well, but I can see opportunity here. So how do I kind of shift that if I recognize that it's like, this is not really sticking?
You ask such an important question because it's really weird. We're communicating right now via a video conference via Zoom. We can be talking on the phone, we could be emailing back and forth. And if you start to think about it, we've got dozens of ways that we can connect. But the problem that we're having in this world today is that with all these means of connecting and how busy our lives are, we actually are probably more disconnected than we've ever been in our entire lives. I know that years ago when the pandemic hit, that was a legitimate reason for keeping us disconnected. We were trying to find ways to do this. But I think a lot of old school ways of doing things in the ways that we used to be able to communicate don't resonate today in the way
Mhm.
that we need to be in that certain way. And I think that was part of the education and the lesson. I'll use this example. Um, Before the internet or before any type of, modern day communication over, let's say, the last 25 years, since the turn of the century, any company that wanted to go into another company and share what they did about themselves, what their capabilities were, that version of a presentation, that PowerPoint march of death, if you would, if you remembered ever having to sit through any of these, was a lot of talking and telling, a lot of talking and telling about what I am all about, what my company does, what my brand is going to do for you. And it was a lot of me, 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 what I'm going to do, I'm going to do. I always laughed, Shayna. You had people that they'd always start the presentation and they'd show every logo of every company they've ever worked for, and they'd throw it up on a page. Today, that logo slide says something totally different than it did 20 some odd years ago. Back then, it was like, ooh, look at all these people that they work with. This is really great. Today, that's everybody that's not me.
Mm.
It's a total flip flop because guess what? We have the internet, we have websites, we have social media handles. We can learn more about somebody before we meet them in person. So a sales presentation isn't an education about somebody talking and telling about how they got their story, where they got their money from, how they launched and became the successful, incredible brand. We don't need that information anymore because that information we already had. And that's how actually why we got the meeting. And that's how we ended up connecting and having a conversation. So talking and telling was an old way to do it. Today, we need to lead by asking and listening. And
That's
one
so
of the
good.
and one of the ways of asking and listening, if you combine that together, that's being curious. It's always the first way I tell people. It's this embracing and loving curiosity is going to get us disconnected to connected. Owning and really understanding, why are you doing it this way? What is that unique way you're doing something? Um, how big is your team? What type of work will you be doing for me? How is that? All the questions that you would want to ask. Curiosity is what's going to bring us together from the very beginning. It's like, what does Shayna do? What does Lou do? Why are they so similar? All of those things are the questions that keep us going. So we've really made a shift today because of that. And that is where a lot of old school ways of doing things have been keeping us disconnected and have made conversations not so great because today someone starts talking and telling at you, the words you've heard are, oh, that guy's mansplaining to me, or dear God, that person loves to talk about themselves. Today is a world where we need to really be embracing specifically what matters to you and understand it, being empathetic in every way we talk. That's why it's so important and why it's changed over the last several years.
Yeah. So, Lou, you're talking about, like the current landscape that we're experiencing, and not only just how busy people are, but how noisy these internet streets are. And so, when you look at the fact that we're so flooded with
Yeah.
digital communication, um, and digital communication is one of the primary ways of communicating nowadays. And so, what do you see people getting wrong when it
Mm.
comes to making a real connection since everything is so digital?
So let's go with the digital piece, and I'll even start off with how we meet today. Think about a meeting right now. I want anyone who's listening or watching this show, go look at your calendar and any of your business meetings or networking conversations and go look at the length of time that you have booked for that particular meeting. Everyone's probably got a 30-minute meeting on the calendar, or it might be even be an hour if it's a larger presentation. We're blocking stuff off and taking big chunks of the day. We can't be focused for more than 45 seconds on a social media video. How do you think we're going to work for 30 minutes on a meeting where people are gathering stuff? Can we be having conversations in a more compact, in a
Mhm.
more focused, which is another way you need to be, being focused in a very concentrated period of time to get the most out of that conversation, truly owning what that moment is. Even this podcast, which is going to be about 20 minutes, we've had to shrink it down, right? From what longer podcasts went for, like, I don't know how Tim Ferriss did hour and a half, 2 hour interviews. I understand they're interesting people, but I think you could be a little bit more compact, if you would. I end every show, as you know, be brief, be bright, be gone. And I think it's a good rhythm of how you should be having conversations. So part of this is appreciation. Since there's billions of people on this planet, and even just having a conversation, you need to treat as a gift, Shayna. So if we treat it as a gift, part of that gift is knowing that that person you're talking with is giving you their time. Make it very quick and to the point of what you need to do. Give them back 20, 15 minutes of your 30-minute meeting and go see how appreciated you will be then and how
Yeah.
much more effective we'll be. So a lot of it has to do with the length of time and how long we could be focused in those conversations to make them connect even more.
That's gonna be really easy for people like me that are high D on, like, the disc because I'm so direct and I'm like, "I don't need all the fluff, I don't need the filler, I don't need the buildup, just get to the point." But those people that are, like, analytical and have to have all the data and all the details, like, oh boy, they're probably sitting here like, "I could never do that." I was talking to a guest of mine, she's actually one of my business coaches, and I was telling her that one of the ways that podcasts are evaluated or scored, if you will, is based on how much of your show people actually get through, like the listen through rate, which is another reason why we should keep our shows shorter. Because if your show is 2 hours long, and even if the whole 2 hours is awesome, but people don't have time to listen past 30 minutes, then the podcast gods think your content is no good. But anyway, I was sharing that with her, and she goes, "It takes me 20 minutes to say my name."
And I think what I know we're trying to make ourselves appreciative and keep things tighter because that's really where the concern is for people to want to listen to us, to want to learn about us, to hear about the things that we do. We've got to be tight in that messaging. It's really important today, and it has nothing to do with you. It's actually this the general components to us that our day is so fluid and busy. It's not as structured anymore.
Yeah,
People are working from all different hours, all different times, and unfortunately, we never turn it off. So because of that, to avoid burnout and all these different things, we really got to zone in on that. And I always say this, like, practice your conversation before you even have it. What are you trying to achieve in that conversation, and what isn't needed? And by
yeah,
doing that, you're going to get to the heart of the matter a little quicker. And you're right, there will be a time, by the way, for a longer conversation when maybe you need to go through more details. And that becomes more of that productive work that you need to do. So, always, whether it's the podcast you're listening to or creating, or the content you're delivering, or the conversation that helps you share whatever it is you're trying to do to connect with someone, um, keep that brevity as a focus so you can be focused in the
yeah,
moment.
absolutely. And I believe that when you start to practice that, your communication is going to become so much more impactful. Your marketing is going to become so much more impactful
Yeah.
because oftentimes a lot of the things that we're saying are either duplicative of something we've already said and we're just saying it in a different way, or it's really not totally necessary for the meat of the message.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what's hard, and this is a great sounding board, and I recommend this to anybody. You had mentioned you have coaches and other leaders that you work with. It's often really good to bounce off who you are to someone else. I call it your team A.
Yeah.
Tell me about yourself, right? How can we do it really quickly? And I like to say, my name is Lou Diamond. I'm a sales and leadership coach. And I love country music, which you talked about in the beginning, which is kind of funny because I don't think Shayna likes country music as much as I do. But
I don't.
yeah, I know it's
I
we
don't
have
hate
a,
it, but I don't love it.
but it is what it is. When you're explaining who you are, you want to kind of give something that makes somebody ask that next question. Well, that's fascinating, and whatever it might be. This woman who used to work for me, um, her name is Nisha. I'm originally from Northern California. I work for a finance company, and one day I want to be a sushi chef. And I
Ah,
remembered, and it was like a great question. By the way, she now has a sushi restaurant and stuff like that. So it's
of
really,
course
really
she
cool
does.
because this is her passion of who she wants to be. We want to connect with that inside part of you, that fearless part of who we are. And it's another way you need to be is to be fearless in your conversations. We want to unleash our superpowers, be super,
Yeah.
and share that bit in our conversations. That's what makes them delicious.
Yeah.
Speakeasy also makes we call them conversational flights at the Speakeasy over here. Every one of them has some unique bit of flavor, a dash of gumption, a little bit of nerve, a splash of passion. These are the things that we want in our conversations. We don't want them dull because
Yeah.
no one wants to connect with a dud.
Absolutely. No duds. No, this is a no dud zone. So,
Yep.
Lou, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to share a little bit more about how we can apply the speakeasy principle. We'll be right back. Ready to turn your influence into income? Take the Influence Growth Assessment. In just minutes, you'll uncover the next steps to grow your visibility, attract bigger opportunities, and boost your profitability. Visit myinfluencestyle.com to take the assessment today. A new era of success is waiting. Let's make it yours. All right, ladies, go take that quiz. It's going to show you if you're really connecting with your influence, if your influence is really connecting with other people. It's just for the ladies, though. Guys, I got some other stuff for you, but guys, don't take my quiz. You're going to skew my data. Anyway. So I have Lou Diamond here. We're talking about his principle of speakeasy. It's like this insider secret club to really being able to connect. And we've shared a number of different applications to this, whether it's in your marketing, your conversations, when you're first meeting someone. You can apply this personally, you can apply this professionally. I just love, love, love this. So Lou, I'm curious, what would you say is your number one piece of advice for delivering a message that sticks? Because you
Mm.
talked about a lot of the things that we can do wrong when we're giving a presentation. And so if we're delivering a message and we want that message to stick, because you've talked about be curious, be focused, what's your number one piece of advice that's going to make that message stick?
You need to solve a problem. At the end of the day, when we think about who we connect with, as weird as this sounds, we want to figure out how that person who we've connected and brought into our world is going to help us with a problem down the road. I often say this, Shayna, the currency of connection is help.
Mhm.
When you think about people in your lives, think of loved ones you care about. Who's the shoulder you need to cry on? Who's the one you need to vent to when you know they could be there? Who's the trusted advisor you can ask questions that you're a little questioning about your doubt? Who's your financial person that you need advice for, right? We have all these different people in our world, and we kind of classify them by how they are helping us and helping our world connect. And in turn, by the way, we're also figuring out ways that we can help them.
Right.
And in great connections, it's that issue. But a lot of people do not clearly communicate the problem they solve
Mhm.
up front. It's really funny. I didn't know this until I really dug down this when I went through the whole speakeasy process. Turned out, Shayna, that the problem I was solving was selfishness. Let me expand in a quick, rapid way here. When we are only focused on ourselves, when we're not sharing ideas, when we're not connecting with others, when we're making it all about us, when we think we can do everything and we could solve all our own problems, while we think we're capable and handing and that's the thing that we're doing, we are not sharing our gift with the world. We're not having a conversation and making a connection with someone that is going to help somebody else, that is literally going to then domino effect of all those conversations, possibly help the world in some way. Conversations are like creating that great content that you have inside of you. And by being selfish and not sharing that conversation or not having the conversation that you think you might need to have that might improve maybe or help you because we're hesitant, we're being selfish.
Mhm.
So the problem I am solving is helping people be less selfish and understand if they own the way they need to be in the speakeasy way, they're going to not only solve the problems that they have, but they're going to make the connections they need that will help them grow or connect, engage, and win, as I often say.
Yeah.
So think of the problem that you solve and know what it is, and then how you're going to help somebody in the currency of going to do that.
And the thing that I would add to that is when you think you've discovered the problem that you solve, I want you to ask yourself, does my audience recognize that they have this problem? And sometimes it's either the words that we're using to communicate it. It's not the words that our audience would use. Usually we try to pick something that's cute and clever, but it's not clear. Or it's the problem that we know they have, or the underlying problem that we know they have that they either have not identified that they have, or they just don't believe that that is the real issue. And so
Hmm.
sometimes that can keep your message from landing if you're either using language that they would not use to describe their problem, or you're describing the underlying problem and not the problem that they recognize that they have.
Here, here. That I hate to say this for everyone out there, whether you like them or not, but each of us in our own way is a consultant.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter the line of work that you're in, because we are actually in a relationship and connection with someone. We are trying to come up with this consultative solution that's going to help everybody. So we need to hear what the problem is and then figure out what needs to be applied to that problem so that we can help that particular individual. That's actually what a conversation does. And I say this often: what is the purpose of a conversation? What's the goal of a conversation?
Mhm.
Shayna, interestingly enough, it's to have another conversation, right? It's what builds the relationship and the connection and keeps that relationship growing. And the more of them you have, the quicker you solve problems together, the faster you're actually able to get stuff done, and the more connected we are to other individuals, which is what we are trying to do in this crazy world. And that's why you and I keep having these great podcasts, because we just keep wanting to add people into our little worlds and have great conversations, because these tools that we have that your listeners are benefiting from, that the guests and hosts benefit from, are the gifts that we need to keep having. So these conversations are equally important.
Absolutely. And I know that you have so much more to share. And so, if people are interested in finding more out about this process, or how you can help them, or how they can implement it, number one, what is the social media platform that they should follow you on?
It's very easy. As she mentioned, the company's name was Thrive, and we have Thrive Loud, which is the name of the podcast. It's also a play on my name, if you haven't figured it out yet. Thrive, THRIVELOUD.com, everywhere on social media: LinkedIn, Instagram, our website, thriveloud.com. It's also where you could find the Speakeasy book. It's where you can learn also about Thrive Loud Productions, where we produce some of the top podcasts, and we're helping other podcasters show how they can use this medium to better connect with their audience, their clients, their customers, and the world.
Awesome. And so, if someone wants to take things further with you, what should they do?
They can head on over to thriveloud.com, or they could DM me on any of those mediums there. Or they can even send an email to we@thriveloud.com to reach me directly.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to make sure that all of that information is in the show notes. So all that they have to do is click it. Everyone, make sure you share this episode, because regardless of what the people in your life do, online, offline, personally, professionally, they need to learn how to communicate, and they need to learn how to connect. So share this so that they can begin to apply the Speak Easy principle in all things that they're doing. So, Lou, thank you so much for being here and sharing your nuggets.
Thank you, Shayna, and always a pleasure. And all your listeners out there, keep on tuning into this program, because the influence master here, the expert, is the one you need to be listening to more often than not.
Thank you. I'll send you your Cash App when we hang up.
Thank
So,
you.
everyone, go back and listen to previous and future episodes as well. I hope you have a great day. Bye bye.